if you set your goals too high, if you want to say, I want to be a perfect parent today, I want to be a perfect surgeon, I want to be a perfect boss at work, you're setting yourself up for failure. If you tell yourself instead, I want to be 1% better today, and then 1% better tomorrow, 1%, that's very doable. That's a much more attainable goal. 1% better today is still 1% better. You are growing. Welcome to Fem MD, real talk for women who are balancing careers, ambition, and the chaos that comes with it all. Today's episode is brought to you by the Hippocratic Collective. Check out our shows and content at hippocratic-collective.com. Growth itself is so important. Is it hard? Yes. Is it ridiculous at times? Yes. But if you're not growing, you're dying. And I know that is not a great thing to think about, but it's true. And I think that growth can apply to so many different aspects of our life. Whether it's your career and professional life, your parenting, your marriage, your relationships with your good friends, colleagues. So good things are hard. Challenges are a good thing. I was one of the crazy ones who decided to open my own business right out of training. So I finished fellowship. I bought a piece of land here in Kansas City. Well, more complicated than that, but we bought a piece of land, built this huge building that I'm sitting in right now. And that was almost 3 years ago. In the last 3 years, our business has grown tremendously. And I would say me personally, I have also grown tremendously in so many different aspects. So business-wise, growth is often tied to money. We think about, how many patients are you seeing? How many surgeries are you doing? What's your revenue? What are your expenses? How is your profit and loss statement looking? That's less exciting growth to me, honestly. I think the exciting part of our growth has been our team. We're now up to 10 incredible women that get to work together every day. I think we push each other in a very positive direction, all collectively. We all want to provide better patient care, better outcomes, better experience. Growth for me surgically is probably an uncomfortable topic because I think back to the very first few patients that I operated on, and I have to tell myself that I'm a better surgeon now than I was 2.5 years ago. Is it fair to those patients then? Well, part of me was like, meh, not really. But I also think that I go into every surgery with the mindset that I will provide the best care that day with my skill set and my knowledge set for that patient. So I have grown surgically. You think about, like an incredible makeup artist or hair artist. If you had them do your wedding makeup or your wedding glam years ago, they're probably better now than they were back then. I think the flip side of growth is also interesting to talk about because right now I feel pulled in every single direction career-wise. When I come to work, I want to be better at this, better at this, better at this. I want to continue to market us. I want to educate our team. But in working with one of my professional coaches right now, a concept that I'm also working on is essentialism, which is almost I hate to say the opposite. My coach would say that's wrong. It is the flip side of growth in all directions. It's honing in on some specific areas that you want to be more intentional about your growth. Because if you're trying to grow in every single direction all the time, it's going to be diluted. And so I think honing in on a few specific areas is helpful for me when it comes to considering my growth right now at age 36, owning a new business, running a team, having patients that count on me, and being responsible for 2 humans at home. So a couple of weeks I sat down with myself and I said, what areas do I want to focus on? Essentialist vibes only here. Team culture is a huge component for me. And I think if you think about other industries, I have read tons of business books. Southwest Airlines currently is not everybody's favorite airline, but years ago, their whole mantra as a company was to focus on their employees, make sure that they were happy in their roles, they had all the resources, all the support, and then that would translate to customer satisfaction. And it very much did. It was a model that worked on a huge scale. And so right now, it can feel overwhelming in my business to focus on team culture, team growth, as well as the patient experience. In trying to be more intentional about exactly where I'm putting my efforts, for the next 6 months, I'm focusing on our team culture. What does that mean? Well, we've implemented an education budget for our full-time employees. Right now, 2 of my employees are at a big cosmetic meeting in Las Vegas. That's all obviously paid for by the business. We had another employee that went to kind of an HR conference, and she brought back some great ideas for us to implement here. I want to be a better employer than any other employer out there. And I think that will help translate to patient care, patient satisfaction, the overall mood and energy that our office gives off as a business. And it's not that I ever want to not focus on patient care. I think that right now I'm building some really good habits when it comes to team culture, team care. And so once I get that ball rolling down the hill and I get that snowball much larger, then it will continue to roll on its own. So it's not that I plan to neglect team culture in the future. It's that I want to be intentional about focusing on it right now. And then in 6 months, we may transition. I may spend brain space thinking about other things. Growth is really what you want to make of it. When it comes to work, I think most of us can feel like growth is a grind. My job and everyone's job is very gritty at times. I tell myself that successful people push through the hard stuff. They do the stuff that nobody wants to do, the boring stuff, the stuff that seems, meaningless. You just have to get through those required things. I had a mentor once tell me that if you just do all the crap that you don't want to do in the morning, then you get to focus your day on the stuff that you really enjoy. I try to just get all the gritty, crappy shit done early on in the day, and then you're not dreading it all day. So while growth can feel like a grind, pushing yourself through is what's going to make you successful over your competitors, your colleagues, whoever you're comparing yourself to, or just your former self. And don't get me wrong, growth does not stop when you leave the office. You get in your car, you drive home, and really the second set of your responsibility starts when you walk in the door and you're home with your kids. And I will say that for me, this gets into a sticky topic where I feel currently like I'm not growing much at home. I feel like I need to be better with parenting my children, especially at the ages they are now. When they're babies, I tell myself they're not going to remember any of this. But my kids are now at the age where they are going to remember a lot of what we do, what we say, what we're teaching them, how we act. They're going to remember all of these things. At ages 3 and 6, both my boys have a ton of energy. They are incredibly wild little creatures, which they should be. And I don't want to squelch any of that. I think the hardest part about growth with parenting is there is no black or white. There's no right or wrong. At work, it almost is easier to grow because there's this like linear path, depending on your career, about how you're growing. Parenting is much more ambiguous to me. And I think that there's so many right ways to parent. It's so hard to know, what kind of parent do I want to be? Do I want to model myself after my parents that raised me, my in-laws who I get to be around all the time, my good friends, and I get to see them parent their children? You really get to choose what kind of parent you want to be. And I will say that, again, with 2 boys, ages 3 and 6, it can be my immediate reaction to get upset or angry or blow up. But I have to take a breath and tell myself, oh, I want to grow as a parent here. Let's not show the immediate reaction that I want modeled for them. When I think about my growth as a parent, I try to see myself in a third person view. When we're outside playing basketball on the patio and the kids are stealing the basketball from one another and I'm sitting there trying to coach them through that, I'm trying to be a bird up in the tree watching myself. What is that bird going to think is good parenting versus bad parenting? Because in the moment, I want to protect the little guy. I want to reprimand the older one. That's not necessarily the best way to go about it. And I think one of the trickiest things for me, parenting growth-wise, is your kids change over time, right? What worked a year ago does not work today. And so you have to constantly be flexible and molding the intake and the output that you're giving and receiving with your kids. And I think that I am one that likes to read. So I do try to consume some parenting books, some parenting content online. But again, it's like every kid is so different. Again, to bring work back, I have to recognize that every employee is different in their personality, how they want feedback, what incentivizes them. It's a very concrete example for me. If I take that home to my children, I also have to realize that they individually are just very different humans. So my older son is much more like me. He's 6. He is very bullheaded. He's stubborn. We often butt heads a bit when it comes to certain topics because we're literally the same human. You don't get married to yourself. You get married to the yin and the yang. So when you meet someone that's exactly like you, you tend to not get along the best. And so I can already see that with my 6-year-old. And I have to tell myself when I get frustrated with his behavior, it's my DNA that I'm getting frustrated with. And then my 3-year-old is so sweet and I would say innocent and very lovey-dovey. And he's much more like my husband. And so I think it's a little bit easier to gravitate towards parenting him and let my husband parent my 6-year-old. But I also think that that's unfair to my 6-year-old. He needs a lot of mom time as well. Even last night, I can't say it was a great growth night. I mainly hung out with my 3-year-old. My husband mainly hung out with the 6-year-old because it was easy. Was it a great parenting night? No, but it was certainly easy after a long week. I can't say there was a distinct moment when I realized my 6-year-old is a genetic spitting image of me. It's been really an evolution as his personality has grown. He's also kind of an odd little child, and I would consider myself a very odd individual. For instance, like what we like to eat. We've got an interesting palate. The girls at work always make fun of me for the things that I'm eating. But then I look at like what I'm packing in my son's lunch and I'm like, this is not like the other kids' lunches. Also, his just really ability to go off and get totally immersed in like one little thing. Last night, he played with a spider on the patio for 10 minutes. I could also probably play with a spider on a patio for 10 minutes. And as an adult now, I can operate for 6 hours and not get tired. I come out of surgery. The spouse is like, you've been operating that whole time. You must be exhausted. And I'm like, actually, no, I'm energized. I love it. I love diving into like one tiny little thing and doing that intentionally for hours. And I see that in my 6-year-old already. So I'm excited to see what he grows into and what career he pursues, what his friends are going to be like, because I think it will probably mirror a lot of my own personality. If I'm going to be a little self-critical for a moment, I think the biggest parenting mistakes that I have made have been being too upset with my children when they make a mistake. I'm too mean. I yell too loud. I didn't take a breath before I responded to their action or whatever they said. Growth-wise, moving forward, I'm telling myself that when I get upset at them, I'm going to take a breath. Because often, even a 2-second breath can give you kind of a reset and make you more intentional about your next move. And they are going to remember that. You have to protect your asset. And that is you. You are your own asset. You are the parent. You are the career woman. You are the spouse. You are the one that holds everything together, and you have to protect you. I think oftentimes, I'll speak for me and my friends right now, we're all in our mid-30s, we all are working, we all have a house and kids, and it's just so chaotic. And oftentimes you are the last person that you think about. But I gave a speech recently to some graduates, and I said that if you don't continue to fill up your cup, you will have nothing left to pour for others. When it comes to my personal growth and protecting me as the asset, there's a few really simple things that I have done recently that have helped me significantly throughout the day. First is prioritizing my sleep. I am a better human when I sleep. And it's weird to think back to residency when I would be literally up all night, work the whole next day, sleep none. And I thought I was doing a fine job. Retrospectively, I probably wasn't my best self. I think growth requires uncomfortability, getting outside your comfort zone. I was never a person who thought I would utilize a professional coach, but I met a wonderful woman through the Hippocratic Collective, which is an incredible company that I'm part of. I met her professionally through that. And then I learned that she offers professional coaching for surgeons, which is such a specific personality type. I know I might come across as like lovely on this podcast, but I would say that I am pretty rough around the edges, as most surgeons are. Talking to someone who has an innate understanding of surgeon personalities, surgeon demands, she herself is a surgeon and a woman and a mom, and she's married. I was like, wow, I think this universe has aligned. The stars are crossing over one another, and I am going to utilize her to help me in this difficult period of my life. We meet once a week for an hour. And that hour I savor. It's incredible. It has reset my mind, my framework, how I look at my week. And we just started together. We're really not even that far into it. But she has been a resource for me in terms of deciding where I want to grow in my life and where I want to ignore. Because everything that we do has a flip side, right? If I spend more time on myself, more time on parenting, more time on team culture at work, then other things fall by the wayside, and you have to be okay with that. And so she is teaching me how to be okay with ignoring some aspects of my life right now and focusing on the things that really matter to me growth-wise. Growth often comes with fear and discomfort. And I think that if we think about where that originates, part of it's you, part of it's your own fear of growth. And then part of it is from other people, other humans that are telling you no, or that's too risky. What are you doing? It's very easy for me to ignore those people, but that's part of my personality. It's very easy for me to ignore the naysayers. You know, when I started my business 3 years ago, the person that I trained under for fellowship told me I was just batshit crazy and that I was going to fail. It was way too risky. It was so easy for me to be like, I think you're wrong. And I recognize that, you know, that's me. A lot of people have a much harder time ignoring people, ignoring the naysayers. The other part of growth and discomfort is your own internal fear. And I think that that's a much more difficult topic to unpack. You know, you have to have the confidence and the ability to believe in yourself when it comes to growth. Do I believe that I can become a better surgeon? Of course. Do I think I can become a better parent? I don't know. I hope I can. That's a trickier one for me. And I don't know why that is. It's hard for me to put into words, but it's so important. It's so critically important that I am there for my children now. It's probably more important than becoming a better surgeon, to be honest. The most helpful thing I tell myself in terms of growth is that you don't have to be perfect. If you get 1% better every day, that is growth. I think back to years ago, I was in the gym. I remember this memory so vividly. I was in gymnastics. I was probably in high school. We had lockers. One of my coaches, Teresa, she left me a note about the concept of Kaizen, which is a Japanese term where you just have to get a tiny bit better every day. If you set your goals too high, if you want to say, I want to be a perfect parent today, I want to be a perfect surgeon, I want to be a perfect boss at work, you're setting yourself up for failure. If you tell yourself instead, I want to be 1% better today, and then 1% better tomorrow, that's a much more attainable goal. So why I have the confidence that I am continuing to become a better surgeon, and I have the question deep down in my chest, can I be a better mom? The thing that brings me comfort is, yes, I can. I'm going to be 1% better today with my kids. 1%. That's very doable. So I think if you're going to go and tackle some big goal or even some small goal, tell yourself 1% better today is still 1% better. You are growing. And if you're not growing, you're dying. Thanks for tuning into Fem MD. And remember, the world belongs to the women who question it.